Rising fears of terrorism from Afghanistan. Britain warns the Taliban against attacks after their successful power grab. Well, leaders are holding emergency talks over the crisis in Afghanistan. Britain has called on G7 leaders to meet, while the European Union will convene in about an hour's time. Discussions have also taken place among NATO members. The United Nations has expressed fear for the safety of Afghan civilians. It's called for access to some territory so it can ensure human rights aren't violated.
We call on the international community to extend all possible support to those who may be at imminent risk. And we call on the Taliban to demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, that the fears for the safety of so many people from so many different walks of life are addressed.
Lucy Hough joins us live now for more. Lucy, NATO's learning lessons from this crisis.
Well, certainly it hopes to learn lessons from this crisis, but the question really is whether or not this has come all far too late. There has been much criticism from national governments here in Europe at essentially the reactionary nature of the way that NATO has handled the withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan. Certainly the immediate focus is really a situation of crisis management. We have had a tweet from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg earlier on today saying that the focus was on the protection of Kabul airport, keeping that airport open and to helping to coordinate the evacuations from the country. In the longer term, this will be about working how to maintain some degree of diplomatic presence in Afghanistan to ensure that any future Taliban government can be held to account. But really, as I say, there has been criticism of the way that NATO has handled this. NATO has been really largely silent since Friday, given the events that we've seen unfolding on the ground, although we are due to speak here from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg in about half an hour's time, and we know that NATO allies have been in regular contact in the last few days.
Lucy, we've seen the images of fear and panic in the Afghan capital in Kabul from yesterday. Is Europe bracing for an influx of refugees now?
It certainly is, and we have got, as you outlined there, a meeting of EU foreign affairs ministers due to begin in around an hour's time, with many here in Europe fearing another major refugee crisis. The UN saying that some 18 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. There is now some debate here in Europe about what exactly that humanitarian assistance should be. Germany, we know for its part, is helping with the evacuation of some 10,000 people from Kabul, including 250 to 2,500 people who have worked with the German government on the ground. There will also be the evacuation, of course, of Germany's diplomatic and military personnel. But France, during an address from French President Emmanuel Macron yesterday, really talking of the need to prevent irregular migratory flows. That sentiment echoed by Greece, who doesn't want to see a repeat of the 2015 migration crisis, which saw 1 million people cross its borders. There is a desire amongst many European leaders here to work with neighbouring countries on Afghanistan borders to host those refugees and not to see those migration flows reach Europe's shores. But again, that is the subject of much debate, and that debate will be starting in around an hour's time as that meeting begins.
Lucy, thank you very much for that. Lucy Hough there in Brussels.